Welcome to a Message to Lightworkers podcast, an interview series created to share and connect through our healing work and our life path. My name is Bri.Hernandez. My spiritual name is Sandora Kuma. I'm the founder of Soul Living Co., and I'll also be your host. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Patricia Ode. She is an intuitive healer. For those living with chronic illness and autoimmune disease, her approach to wellness is focusing on healing of the inner child through deep shadow work and understanding the generational trauma in one's life that has ultimately led to physical disease. Patricia has been led down this path after healing her body from 25 years of chronic illness, autoimmune disease, through mind, body, and soul work. Creating sustainable and positive lifestyle changes in her life. First, Patricia was able to rid the body of toxicity that was blocking her mind and heart, ultimately allowing her to dive deeper into soul healing. Patricia works with individuals in her Full Circle Wellness program by tapping into the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual worlds of wellness, and is working towards the creation of a deep and sacred retreat center for those ready to transform. Patricia, that sounds like you've gone through so much and are projecting to do so much more.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today to share your story with all of us.
Thank you for having me. This is so lovely. I'm excited.
Good, me too.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more? Can you kind of rewind to chronic illness time? When did this can you kind of give us the backstory?
Sure. Okay. I will do my best to make that long story short. Started when I was about 5, transitioning between 4 and 5. My parents divorced, and that kind of just wrecked my world, my little tiny world. And I didn't know how to communicate that. And so suppressing those emotions, now that I understand that, started to destroy my physical body at a really young age. By the time I was 5, I was having chronic pain in my body, chronic migraines, gastrointestinal issues, and then things just only got worse as I grew up. I was always the kid that was 20 or 30 pounds overweight due to just emotional binge eating, and just had a really hard time. I was kind of a victim to myself throughout my younger years. And so in middle school and high school, I was the one that was always in the hospital or the doctors or taking a new medication or this or that. And it just got really bad. By the time I was 18, I had blood clots and I had to have a bone removed to save my life, I guess. And, it just kind of kept going. And by the time I was 25 years old, I really had a wake up call with my last surgery for endometriosis. My ovaries were attached to my hip bones from the scar tissue in my body. And I guess I was one level, one stage, whatever you want to call it, away from it spreading and turning into cancer in my body, which at the time I didn't really understand or know anything about. And so when this happened, one morning I just kind of woke up and was like, I'm sick of being sick. I don't want to feel this way anymore. There's not been one solution with any doctor, specialist, pill, surgery, nothing in 20 years. So I'm going to start looking elsewhere. And that's when I started to look into food. So I had about 2 months until this surgery came up, and I started prepping myself. I went to my doctor. I told him I wanted to wean off all my medications. I started slowly changing my diet. And the plan was to be off all medication by the time that surgery was over. And I was, and I have been. And the 9 months following that surgery, I transitioned from standard American lifestyle to a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And I was off of all my medications, had reversed migraines and fibromyalgia and cystic acne. And those things alone made me say, holy shit, there has to be more to this. And at that point, it was like, I have to tell everyone, everyone should know that this exists. And so I just started sharing my journey on Facebook at the time. And because, healing can be a really lonely journey too. So being able to share myself was, that felt supportive for me. And I just kept going from there. And here I am 8 years later. I work with herbs and raw foods and plant foods and, the mind, body, and soul. And it just keeps evolving and going deeper. And it's so beautiful.
Well, that sounds really epic. So could you tell me now because it's not just food.
Right? Not
Okay,
at all.
you're talking about mind,
Mm,
emotional,
mm,
soul. Can you tap on those
yeah,
aspects?
for sure.
Okay, because it starts with food. Well, for you, it started with illness.
Yeah,
Then it moved to food. Tell me how it moved into emotional, how it moved to spiritual, how it moved to
sure.
mental. How does that tie
Such
in
a
right
good question, because I think the answer in this just goes to show how we all have to start where we are. There's no cookie cutter way of people healing. And I think starting with food, to me, I like to say food is our gateway to healing, because we can't go to that next level. We can't peel that layer if we have all of this toxicity in the body from the chemicals that we're consuming, right? And food, like, beautiful raw foods, plant foods that help us to thrive, also can heal the body from external chemicals and things that we can't control, which is why I think getting this foundation of a really sustainable diet is so key, because that allows your body to detox. I always like to think of it as like brain fog. When someone has brain fog, like, once you start to really bring in the good foods and take out the bad, then you start to clear up, you start to open up. And that allows you to have the ability and the opportunity to start to feel yourself, to start to get to know yourself, to really start to learn who you are and what you need, and to see where you've built the walls in your life, from the things you didn't want to face and feel. And that, to me, really truly is what raw foods did for me. I was raw vegan for a couple years, and I eat mostly raw now. Um, but yeah, so it started with food, and that really allowed me to tap into my emotional side. But it took time. For probably the first 3 years, I was really nutrition focused, like very centered in that. And that evolved in itself. It went from kind of being like in this box in the whole food plant based world, and feeling like if I had a drop of oil, I was bad. Or, like, I really just found myself in also a judgmental place, and I needed to get out of that. So I kept kind of going and really listening to my intuition and finding intuitive eating and what that looks like for me. And that is what led me to working with tools like meditation and breath work and movement and yoga. I'm a big fan of restorative and yin yoga because I love how it opens up the body. It's so healing. And then I kind of kept going, and I've just been working. I very intuitively have been working with herbs for the last 7 years or so, and finally, went and got some education in it, to have that background. But it's just, I believe that it's so spiritual. Fruit and herbs are the most electromagnetic plants on earth, and we're made of energy, and those are energy. And so we connect, and we just like thrive, and that opens us up mentally and spiritually and emotionally too. So all just kind of comes together. But putting a lot of self-care practices into my healing practice has been huge, and I didn't know what that looked like at first. I went to this women's retreat. It was a 2-day women's retreat just 2 years ago in October. And we were asked, like, what does self love mean? Do you love yourself? And I was like, well, I mean, of course I love myself. But truly, I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what was coming for me, and cracking that open. I wasn't able to look at myself in a mirror ever. And, going to those places and diving deeper in that sense really opened up my eyes to healing is not one thing. It's not food, it's not a pill, it's not a supplement, it's not a herb, it's not a meditation, it's not a yoga practice, but it's all the things. It's bringing all the pieces together.
Nice. So I want this kind of be an opportunity now to explain what the Full Circle Wellness
Oh,
program
sure.
is. What
Sure, thank you. Well, and this will kind of almost answer something I feel like we're going to talk about later. But when COVID happened, I found it as a really beautiful opportunity. At the time, I was running True Desserts, a raw vegan dessert company, and I started that business because I didn't want to work in a clinical setting with people, because I found it so taxing on my energy when I first became a nutritionist. And I really wanted to have fun with teaching people. So I created this business where it was like you could learn about the healing properties in food while not harming yourself or your body or the planet. And it was like just such a fun time. But during that time, it was never enough for me, because I always loved to educate, or I would meet people with food intolerances and allergies, because a lot of people like that came to True Desserts. And I would always, like, the conversation would spark up, and the healing discussions were always there. And I for years had wanted to put together a program, but I never felt comfortable with putting something together and then just like throwing it online just to make money. Like I feel I have always felt I needed to be present. So long story short, COVID happened and I was like, this is it. No one cares about cakes anymore. Like we need healing. We need healing on every level. And I just need to find a way where I can work with my energy to where it doesn't drain me. I have to find a way to work with the gifts I've been given. I feel I've been given. And so I started manifesting the Full Circle Wellness program. And it just kind of came to me like when I know something, like when I know I want to do something, I just know it. It doesn't take me long. Like it just kind of go bam, bam, bam. And I was just thinking about what I want to be called, Full Circle Wellness Perfect, because I know for me in my healing journey, I needed all of these areas. However, I personally specialize more in diet and herbal medicines, plant medicines. And, I'm not a yoga instructor or this or that. And so I thought, why don't I bring in some people in my circle, some beautiful people I've met that can do this with me. So I created this online program. It's 12 weeks where I work with, it ended up being women. I didn't have an intention for that, but I guess that's kind of what, I attract is women in their healing stages. So we work one-on-one together very deeply. We go through a lot of generational trauma. That's where I really dive deep into their bodies so they understand what's happening on a cellular level. So they know that it's more than food, but also how food supports them. So we do that work behind the scenes. And then weekly as a group, we come together through Zoom and we have some powerful discussions around health and wellness. The first half of the program is geared towards real raw alkaline healing, regenerative detoxification type of nutrition. And then the rest of the program is more shadow work, feminine, masculine, inner child, stuff like that. And then I've brought in some guest speakers, including you, which everyone has really loved your work, your beautiful meditation practice. And so I have guest speakers doing different movement practices, breath work, meditation, discussing, things like the connection between humans and animals and nature, because that plays such a big role in our wellness. And it just kind of keeps going and it's evolving. I've brought in different, so I'm moving into the third round of it next month. Registration opens so soon. I can't believe it because the first one is like, it just happened. But it's evolving. So I'm bringing in new guest speakers and just kind of shifting things. And it's been really beautiful to watch. So that ended up happening. And I'm working on some other things behind the scenes, but it's been really beautiful because I'm able to be present with these people. It's a small group of, individuals, so I can have the time to work with them. But yeah, it's been so beautiful. And it's so amazing to see the students that come to me. I just laugh every time someone, I like jump with joy, but I also laugh because I see the divinity in what's happening. Like everyone is a mirror of me at some point in my life. And that is how I know that we're meant to work together because, I know exactly where you are. I understand you. I sympathize with you. I empathize with you. And it's just such a beautiful thing to watch and to see. And it really has opened up my trust in the universe, in the self, in the greater spirit. Like, it's just so cool. So that's what's going on with the program.
Wow, I love that. I feel energized just kind of like listening because it's like that's a true kind of testament to follow your intuition, follow guidance, like everything that's happening in your life is for a reason. Like it just falls perfectly into like all those little categories and the way that you're explaining it. It really just it's fluid. It's fluid. So
Absolutely.
I love that.
It is.
If you could give a book recommendation, what would that book be and why? It could be multiple books. But...
Yeah, this is such a hard one because I am your girl that is reading 5 books at a time always. And so that's definitely a difficult one. But I set a couple of books aside I want to share. I thought that they were good. One I just started reading. One I think is just such a classic to understanding, true wellness when we tap into our heart. And then the other is a nutrition book. So I'll start with this one. I just started reading this. It's called It Didn't Start With You. And it's a book I've been searching for so long and understanding what generational trauma really is on a cellular level, how, we as a third or a fourth generation are literally impacted on a physical and emotional level by what our ancestors experienced. And I am a third generation genocide survivor of the Armenian genocide. And I now see so much connection in my body, and I understand myself so much more deeply. And what that does is it empowers you, and it takes you out of that victim mentality, and it gives you this deep appreciation for your lineage, which I think it's so easy to lose that. Growing up, I didn't care about my ancestors. I didn't care about any of that. And it's just, and I think to be able to introduce something like this to someone who's chronically sick, and like nothing like this is ever talked about, at a doctor's office, like it's really big work. And so I'm really excited about this book, and I think it's something that everyone should read. It's great. And then this is another one, The Mastery of Love, by Miguel Ruiz. He has a bunch of books, but to me, the answer is always in love, always. And I know that can be really hard for some people to understand when we only look at love as relationship, but when we start to understand love as the self and our connection to that higher power, then we understand that we can create our own misery. Our mind really manifests the environment that we live in. And if we understand how to live in love and compassion and what that really, really, truly looks like in this book, it's really cool. It really creates a different lifestyle. So I love that one. And then this is an all-time favorite. I gift this to every single client and student that I work with. It's a medical medium book. It's called Life-Changing Foods. I love this book so much because this came to me back in 2016 when I was like really riding the whole food plant-based train with all those doctors and stuff, but something wasn't sitting right. And this was introduced to me. And I remember reading through it and, reading about Anthony Williams and his journey and how spirit came to him when he was 4 years old. And I was like, spirit, and I'm like flipping the pages. Where's this guy's credentials? Like, I don't understand. What does he mean by angels? Like I just wasn't tapped in that sense yet. But I was so intrigued. And for so long, I was looking for what I truly wanted in education with food was to learn about, if I eat an apple, what is it doing for me? If I eat blueberries, like taking away all the superfood powders and the, exotic things out there, if I just have these fruits and veggies, like I wanted like a dictionary or an encyclopedia for food. And knowing, because I knew that there was so much power in food, just simple foods and healing the body, but there was nothing out there. And then I found this book, and that's exactly what it is. It's so beautiful. And so to start with someone who has no idea about food, or someone who has some sort of an idea, or someone who has even been like, in their journey for a few years, it's just such a beautiful book to work with. You can go to the back of it. You can look up any symptom, any illness, any disease, and it'll take you to the pages. That's how I'll help people create grocery shopping lists. Like, oh, you've been diagnosed with celiac, turn to the back, write down the page numbers and flip through them and write all those foods down, and you go buy those at the grocery store, and we'll learn how to work with them. So I love this book, and I love all medical medium books, but that being said too, like there's so much more beyond medical medium. So for those of you who are intrigued, just like always know to keep flowing and keep going. So those are my book recommendations.
Love. Okay. And what is the best investment that you've ever made? Whether that be like time, money, energy, like what is the thing that you just feel like this is a really good investment?
Myself. Honestly, just like no matter how hard it got, and no matter how loud the voices got around me, just really trusting me and trusting where I was going, where I was being guided, and believing in myself. And that is an investment, because across the board, that does come with financial investment and self-education and, mentors and whatnot, but it's such an energetic investment. And to go to the places I've gone with facing my fears, that's an investment in itself. And that's the greatest one. That is me purposely, intentionally putting myself in a place of discomfort so I can break open and learn more and evolve, because everything that I experience passes on to my clients. So definitely myself.
Love that. That's a great segue to this next question is like, what event took place that really had the biggest impact on your spiritual journey?
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms. For real. I so very much believe in them. They came into my world 6 years into my healing journey when I was sober for, that's also probably a really big one, sobriety. I was sober for 17 months. I don't think I necessarily, like, I wasn't binge drinking or anything like that, but I was way too consistent and I was covering up. So I decided to just stop drinking. I didn't smoke weed or anything. I just was eating really well and practicing yoga. And it was just in a really, um, I was still in a lot of pain from my past that I didn't really know was there yet. And that's why I say, like, you start in one place. Food is the gateway. I would have never been able to be in this place of sobriety had I not changed my lifestyle with my food. And that led me to such deeper healing. And to me, mushrooms are so spiritual. It is not about getting high. It is not about getting messed up. There are plenty of studies out there for those who are like, what? Like, that's crazy. And I am now going to enter into a 5-month training for psychedelic therapy to integrate into my own business with the people who are ready for that transformation. Um, it's beautiful. You really truly connect with something greater than you can ever imagine. And I really believe that that's how I found my faith, how I found um, myself, how I've been able to look at myself in the mirror, and how I've been able to understand my lineage and just so much. And it's just been the most transformational, beautiful experience that I don't want to hide from it. I don't think I should hide from it. I think that we should be talking more about it. And that, the systems are just really messed up to make you believe that it's something that's bad for you. So that's just definitely that's been the greatest blessing on my journey for sure.
It sounds so expansive.
It is, it's very expansive. Yeah.
And even though it's expansive though, it feels so, and this is what I love about duality, right? Or polarity, is that it's so expansive, yet you're getting so full within this place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually like coming from in and like expanding outward. So I love that.
It is.
At what point, it was time for you to kind of go full force, like in your path? Because I feel like there's lots of times where it's like you're rocky, you're not sure,
Yeah.
What the next step. But what was that like switch for you that was just like, I'm doing, this is it?
Yeah.
Like,
That's such a good question. That's such a good question, because that's so true. Like, you almost want to be like, well, when I became an entrepreneur, like that's it, but it's not, because you really have to go through all that roller coaster stuff to figure it out. And I would say it was the day that I delivered True Desserts cake the last week in March. So, COVID just kind of was getting going. And I came home and I looked at my husband and I was like, no one cares about this. Like, it's time to change. It's time to really start doing what I'm meant to be doing. And I was out of the kitchen I was working in by August, like really just shut it down real quickly. And I knew it was right, And so I would say that probably that time for sure.
What is one lie that you lived by in the past that you have overcome? Or maybe one lie you're kind of, you're aware of and you're overcoming right now at the moment?
Yeah, my body image. When my dad left when I was a little girl, which that has been a huge part of my healing process, reconnecting with him on purpose, putting myself in that situation and forgiving and finding compassion for, his childhood and all of those things. It's been huge. But when he left, I didn't know what to do. So I just ate and I ate. I mean, I would take food and sit in my closet as a little girl and I would eat. And um, because of that, I just started to gain weight in certain parts of my body. Like, I was just the little girl with cellulite and with a stomach. And I was just always so uncomfortable. I've never been comfortable in my skin, literally, until this last year, until probably the last like 7 months. I had this perspective of myself where now I look back on photos, 10 years ago, where I was like really underweight from starving myself, taking Adderall, doing all these bad things to my body. And I remember looking in the mirror at those times and thinking how fat I looked, like using that word and just talking down to myself and, never really seeing what my vessel is for. And now I understand what it's here for. And I still have a tough time. It's something to really overcome. But when I have a tough time, I stay. I make myself look in the mirror. I make my eyes focus there. I thank myself. I honor myself. And it's a work in progress. But I'm so happy to be past that lie about myself, right? About like just constantly being so down about how I look. Like, what? Who teaches us to do that? This is the worst thing ever. It's like there's so much beauty. And one thing that actually started to help me was if I ever would see a photo of a naked woman, and I love to see how like the great feminine is just like rising right now. And you see these beautiful pictures of women out in the woods, and they're all colors and shapes and sizes. And I always find it so beautiful. And that has helped me to look at myself better and say, well, what would I think if I saw my shape naked? Anytime I see that, I'm like, wow, what a beautiful woman. Why can't I do that for myself? So there's just so many tools to work with. And that's definitely, it's so empowering to work through that and share that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What would you tell, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
What would you tell a struggling light worker to remember as they are attempting to follow their own path?
Just listen, like always listen, always, always, always listen and trust. We internalize way too much. We let the fears get in the way. We can easily be like, I'm not scared, but it's not about that surface level stuff. It's about going so much deeper and being honest with yourself and where you are. And intuition truly is everything. It's that feeling you get. It's like when you're working with someone and you feel like anxious. I'll never forget when I worked with a client and my hands were behind the keyboard just shaking because this person was trying to like take over the entire appointment. And I realized like that energy, like this isn't right. And so honoring what's right for you, not just for this other person, because you're not meant to work with everyone, right? Like you're one person, you can only do so much in the world. So just really, really be mindful of your energy and just really pay attention to what your body is telling you always. Yeah.
If you could assign one I am affirmation to everyone on the planet, what would that be?
I am love for sure. That affirmation has gotten me through some dark times. And if it doesn't make sense, it's okay. At some point it will. Just keep saying it and understand. Like you'll just have this deep understanding and you'll find your place in the world that way.
Perfect. Patricia, I'd like to thank you for spending time with us and sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Bree. I appreciate this. This is so fun. Thank you.
Thank you.